Hello again. Welcome to the Fantasy Sultans for one final time now in the 2025 football season. It's 2026. Yes, I'm aware of that fact, but still, this is going to be our last go around for the Fantasy Sultans. He, of course, the Hall of Famer Mike Scheck. I am Tripp Rogers, and we are happy to be with you. We're happy you've joined us on this show. Now, it's a little different because, well, we usually talk fantasy football. Well, there's not a lot of fantasy to talk about with the Super Bowl. But what we do on this show, on this edition, if you've not been with us, is this is our recap of 2025. And we'll give you lessons we learned. We will also give you our way too early top 12 for fantasy football. Touch a little bit on NFL news and the coaching news and stuff like that. And last but not least, we will make our fearless Super Bowl predictions, which are guaranteed to lose you money. Considering the fact, I think, wait a minute. Now, I'm trying to remember. I had Philadelphia and Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken. You had Carolina and
Kansas City.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no.
there we go. We're both wrong. Ruggo! All right. So anyhow, Michael, first of all, before we get into fantasy stuff, let's talk a little bit of coaching news because, for the longest time, you were wondering, are these jobs going to be filled? There were 10 vacancies all told when it was all said and done. And I think the last time we talked, there were only 8. So there have been 2 more vacancies since we last talked. And I think that it's the last 2 were surprising, but maybe not. But now all the jobs have been filled. And what I find interesting is let's talk about that first group of coaches and the first group of jobs. There were 8 jobs available within a couple of days of the end of the season. And those 8 jobs, the 3 of them that were talked about as being the best jobs, Giants, Titans, Falcons, not necessarily in that order.
Right.
Again, you could change that anyway. And what were the first 3 jobs that were filled? Giants, Titans, Falcons. The Miami job was filled, but I kind of hold that away because the guy who was hired a guy he knew from Green Bay. So I'm not going to count that. But I think it says something that those 3 jobs were filled. And I think if you've been listening to our Sunday with the Sultans show on radio on Fox Sports New Jersey and foxsportsnewjersey.com, been saying the 3 jobs that were hellholes, Cleveland, Las Vegas, Arizona. What were the last jobs filled? Cleveland, Las Vegas, Arizona. No surprise. Mike, I guess your thoughts on the coaching search, because again, that will have some fantasy implications, but right now it's just about who got a good coach.
Yeah, we know, and we talked about the New York Giants. I mean, they definitely got a good coach in John Harbaugh, what he brings to the table in that playoff resume. That's a good analysis there. I think when we take a look at Jackson Dart, he'll be on the up and up. I think that offense gets improved there, so that's a good hire. The biggest hire that I think a lot of people are maybe overlooking is Robert Saleh in Tennessee. Mike Vrabel in New England has done a bang-up job for that team. He turned around a 4-13 squad to a 14-3 squad in one season. And I believe, and I'm not saying that Robert Saleh is the greatest coach, but Tennessee has the mirrorings of New England, I think, a little bit. In that case, I think, they're bringing in they got a good offense coordinator, Brian Dable. They've got Cam Ward, who rookie season saw some promising things from him. They have a very good defense, and Robert Saleh is known for his defenses. So I think that is going to be one of those sneaky teams that could make a big splash in 2026. Mike McCarthy goes to Pittsburgh. a lot of question marks there. Pittsburgh opting for not a first-time head coach this go around. Big question is Aaron Rodgers coming back? I think that's a question because, you take a look at, and we got to go back 10 plus years for the success that Rodgers had with McCarthy. But, those two have worked together. But again, totally different dynamics. A lot has changed. Rodgers has gotten older. So, you're wondering if he's going to come back or not. But, we'll have to see what happens there. Todd Monken in Cleveland. Cleveland's Cleveland, but at the same time, Shedeur Sanders, he looked good in the Pro Bowl the other night, made some kind of explosive plays. He's always going to be on everybody's radar because of his father, Dion, and he's always going to be in the spotlight. But I think that's a interesting hire that was taken. And I'll tell you another interesting hire, Clint Kubiak going to Las Vegas. Now, this is a team that I think could make some noise in the next couple of years. I mean, obviously they're going to go after Fernando Mendoza for the first round pick. And, Aston Genty is there. They've got Brock Bowers. So, good hire, I think. Tom Brady knows some stuff about football. He's only been in the league for so many years and has those 7 rings. So, he had to be doing something right. You wonder how long it was going to take for Brady to put up with, and I don't even want to say mediocrity because I don't even think it was that last year in Las Vegas. It was worse than mediocrity. But, so I think that is another good move. A lot of good hires, a lot of first-time head coaches, which goes to show you that I think the league is changing. I think owners have a different outlook on these coaches now. Big names like, Bill Belichick was being tossed around, but did he get an interview? No. John Gruden's name was out there for returning to coaching. No, not him either. So, again, high-profile coaches. The only one that I think was the big high-profile coach that was hired by a team was John Harbaugh. But otherwise,
no, I'll go Mike. No, let's go Mike McCarthy. McCarthy too. I would go McCarthy too. But again, on your point, I think it's valid. But I'm going to say this: in terms of coaching hires, who were the losers? Brian Flores. And I'm going to say the problem with Brian Flores, that lawsuit against the NFL. I think that's going to hold him back, and that held him back because his defenses have been really good. And a lot of people thought he would get a look this year. He ended up re-signing with Minnesota. But Minnesota had an extremely disappointing season. They just fired their GM, too. The other thing, John Gruden, you said, he's got a lawsuit against the NFL. Don't think he's going to get hired for that reason. You mentioned Bill Belichick, and I think we need to just kind of address it real quick. And again, we taped this Thursday night. They'll make the announcement for the Hall of Fame class, but already ESPN's reported that both Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick did not make it this year. And I know Bill Belichick deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think it's an indictment on Bill Belichick. I think it is the system and the fact that you have 3 players in there with an owner and a coach. I thought Belichick's candidacy was hurt by the fact that Kraft was in there too, but the fact that both of them didn't get enough votes, I'll be very curious to see if you got to think one of the players is going to get through, maybe 2, but if all 3 get through, that's going to be an indictment on the whole process. But I wanted to just rotate back now, and you can comment on in just a second, Mike, but I'll go back to Belichick. Here is the second winningest coach in NFL history. It's not he doesn't want to coach. He's coaching in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he didn't even get a look this year? This is the 3rd coaching cycle that Bill Belichick's been available. Why do you think it is? I'm going to say it. I think NFL teams do not want the circus. They do not want the circus that Bill Belichick brings. And I hate to say this, Bill, look in the mirror. You brought it on yourself. Now, it'll be interesting to see what does happen next year at North Carolina because I think it's going to be make or break because if he has another lousy year, I cannot believe that he would stay at North Carolina. Now, Mike, I'm sorry, I digress.
No, I agree with you about Bill Belichick, and we're going to have a more in-depth discussion on our Sunday with the Sultans show as part of our Super Bowl edition on Fox Sports Radio New Jersey and Fox Sports Radio Jersey Shore, foxsportsradionewjersey.com as well. We will talk about Bill Belichick, but the controversies with him. You had the whole Spygate,
Yeah,
Deflategate.
yeah.
Of course, the whole thing with the girlfriend and the personal life. And I don't think personal life should be really mixed into a resume with a coach, but sometimes it does end up, affecting people's lives a little bit. And again, you mentioned North Carolina, 4-8 season. So, that could have played a lot into the decision. Now, I know you said it's more the system and how the things were voted. Bill Polian, I think the news out this week, they were talking about him affecting a vote because I think he had to have 40 or 50 votes to make it. I think he was just shy of it. And Bill Polian, the controversy around him saying, I did not vote for Belichick. Of course, everybody's speculating that whole deal. But again, this is a guy who, won 6 rings with one team, assistant on 2 with the Giants. So you got 8 overall. For him not to get the Hall of Fame, I'd say that's a snub. I mean, I know that there's controversy around, but I'd say that's a snub. And I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with Brady when it's his time to get into the Hall of Fame, whether he gets the snub the first time around. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's just my prediction.
Okay, and again, that is fair. That is fair. All right, we are the Fantasy Sultans, and by the way, speaking of, Mike's in the Hall of Fame, so he's the Hall of Famer. I mean, he is the Hall of Famer. So there you go. He can speak about Hall of Fames.
Yeah.
All right. Lessons we learned this year in 2025. Every year you learn something new.
Mhm.
And Mike and I both have learned some things this year. By the way, the first thing I'm going to start off, listen to my daughter, Stephanie. My daughter, Stephanie, knows what she's talking about. Twice this year, she dropped players on the waiver wire. And I'm like, what the heck are you thinking? Daddy picked up Austin Eckler, put him on IR. Never saw the field. Stephanie was right. And Stephanie also dropped another player in the middle. Somebody else scooped him up, and he got injured the following week. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
was she right about the therapy comment, though? Was she right about that?
There you go. Free therapy, too. If we ruined
free
you,
therapy.
Free therapy. But I think the lesson learned on this, though, and I think we say this, but more so this year, and you saw this, I saw this in other leagues, too. You got to watch the waiver wire. You really do, because especially in leagues that have short benches and also one waiver, one IR position, maybe 2, because a lot of times people will have to let people go. And, what one man's trash, another man's treasure, as the old saying goes. But I think that's a big lesson to be learned this year. You've got to watch those waiver wires. And I think this year, Mike, honestly, I looked at the waiver report each and every week in every league I'm in because, again, couple of nuggets along the way, and that can transform your season.
Well, I'll say I thought 2025 was going to be the revenge of the receiver, and that wide receivers were going to fare early in the earlier rounds, that they're going to do better. Jamar Chase over Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb over Bijan Robinson, perhaps even you said Justin Jefferson over Jahmyr Gibbs. Instead, it was more like the revenge of the Sith. I mean, because this was, all talk about receivers. And you know what? It just did not happen. And I think that this year we have to factor into the equation that going OG, I think we got to go back to the running backs because, you take a look at the value picks that you get from running backs, you get a lot more value out of running backs early than you do wide receivers, I think. And I think this year has proven that as well because some of them did not put up the numbers that they should wide receiver wise. And, you got a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan. Well, Saquon, he put up numbers, but not like the season before. Look at what James Cook did in Buffalo. Now, that wasn't a first round pick, but he did well. Other good running backs too. Montgomery in Detroit. McCaffrey, I'm forgetting about him. I don't know why I'm forgetting about him, but McCaffrey. And people overlooked him because he was injury prone. And that's another point that we should make is don't fade a player just because you think that they're injury prone, because sometimes that is not the case. In the case this year, we kind of faded McCaffrey a little bit, and he turned out to be a gem for some people, Mac included. He benefited from McCaffrey. Also,
Yep.
waiting on a waiting on a quarterback, that's a huge gamble, but you can hit on those quarterbacks if you choose wisely. Between 2022 and 2024, only 12 quarterbacks with at least 10 games played and finished with 12 plus or 20 plus fantasy points per game. 15 quarterbacks playing a minimum of 10 games averaged 20 points or more this season. You got Trevor Lawrence, Drake May, Daniel Jones. Now, Daniel Jones had that injury late in the season, but he was still a good quarterback if you picked him up early and you had him, and you started him for a good portion of the season. Also, Matt Stafford. And we drafted Matt Stafford by a mistake. He was the last pick in our Rat League. I made a mistake. I selected the wrong player. Good thing I did not select the player that we were going to choose. Got Matt Stafford, and he was a reliable backup quarterback that we had in the mix with Dak Prescott. So,
Yeah.
Here's a quarterback at 37 who's still putting up good numbers. And, whether or not he retires in the offseason will be a big question. It sounds like he's coming back, but we'll have to see about that. Waiting on a quarterback is a huge gamble. And again, the quarterbacks taken early, like Patrick Mahomes, well, he got injured and he didn't put up the numbers. Jalen Hurts, well, he benefited, or I should say, wasn't the benefit of a poor offense that Philadelphia had. He didn't put up
Yeah.
the numbers that everybody expected. Josh Allen was good. He turned out all right. Trevor Lawrence was good, but again, that was a late round quarterback that some people took flyers on. So again, here we go again with quarterbacks and the whole dilemma. We may have to reevaluate that next year. We were all up about quarterbacks taken early. Maybe not. Maybe it's back to, well, you wait on a quarterback.
Like what I was along those lines, I'm gonna kind of, my theory in drafting, and I've said this on this show. I've said it for a while. I've always been a one quarterback guy, especially if you got a late bye. You don't need
Right.
two quarterbacks. But in today's NFL, I think I got to really reevaluate, especially this year, because boy, did I get burned on that, especially in a super flex league I was in. I mean, my quarterbacks were awful. I think I had to pull on the waiver wire. I had Joe Flacco because that's how desperate I was for a quarterback. There were no quarterbacks. I mean, I was laughing at people, they were drafting 3 and 4 quarterbacks and I was saying, oh, you guys are crazy. And I'm like, yeah, guess who had the last laugh? And, Shedeur Sanders was selected. And I said, are you on drugs? Well, guess what? Guess who had the last laugh on that Shedeur Sanders pickup?
Yeah.
But I think that's another lesson I learned this year, as I think you got to think two quarterbacks. I got to go away from this one quarterback, hero quarterback mode. And the same thing with tight ends, hero tight end. I think you need two because, again, if you get caught, Brock Bowers' injury situation kind of caught a lot of people. And if you get caught, you're in trouble. Harold Fannin was gold. He was gold at tight end. But again, I don't necessarily say two tight end, not bad. It's not a bad thing to have. But the two quarterback is where I'm really going. I think that was the biggest lesson that we learned this year. All right. I know it. You're not thinking this far in advance, but 2026 will be here before you know it. We always do our too early top 12 picks. Michael,
Yes.
you lead off.
Well, you're going to hear a lot of running backs from me in my top 12. I'm going OG. I believe that we've got to get back to grabbing stud backs, and three are going to rule the top spots for me. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back in Detroit. He's my number one with over 1,200 yards. He's kind of the bright spot in that Lions offense this season, and I think his stock is going to rise if David Montgomery becomes a free agent. So we'll have to see what happens there. San Francisco running back Christian McCaffrey. He's number two. Now we're going to be talking about him like we did in 2025. He's going to be a concern. He had over 400 carries this season. Could be in a similar situation as Saquon did. And, we saw Saquon's numbers reduced because of his workload, but part of it was the offense he was in. So that's something to watch. Number three, Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. Now, he's considered one of the best backs in the NFL. Could be in a similar situation as Jahmyr Gibbs, as his stock could rise if Tyler Algier leaves in free agency and starts somewhere else. Number four, I'm going to add in a wide receiver. Finally, top three were running backs. Let's go to number four. Puka Nacua, wide receiver in LA. I think he's the first wide receiver off the board. But the big question is going to be, and I talked about it, is Matt Stafford coming back for next season, for another season, or is he going to retire? That could affect what happens there. I, again, do not believe that Stafford is retiring. I think that LA will have him for another year. So Puka, he should be number four. Number five, running back Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. He was great before falling off a cliff, but falling off a cliff came after Daniel Jones had the ACL injury. Over 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. Daniel Jones should be back healthy. I know there's rumors out there saying that maybe Malik Willis goes to Indianapolis. I don't know. We're going to have to see about that. But either way, Jonathan Taylor should be that back that you want to grab. Number six, Devon Achane, running back in Miami. I'm putting Achane, I think I would be putting him a bit even higher than this if not for the uncertainty in Miami. Now, a lot of question marks. You got the coaching, new coach Jeff Hafley coming in. What's the situation with Tua? Is he returning, or does Miami ship him off to another team? So a lot of question marks there. Devon Achane could be even higher up the ranks. We'll have to see what happens. Maybe we'll reevaluate come August. Let's go to number seven, Jamar Chase, wide receiver from Cincinnati. Now, maybe I have him a little low here, but even with playing with no Joe Burrow for multiple games, he did have almost 1,500 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. Big question is, does Joe Burrow want to be in Cincinnati, or does he request a trade? It sounds like he wants to play on a winning squad and really is not enjoying where he's at in his career. He can win in Cincinnati, but do they have the right formula? And we questioned it. 3 of the 4 AFC coaches have new coaches, and they kept a coach that just hasn't been the same since they went to the Super Bowl 4 years ago. So we're going to have to see what plays out there in Cincinnati. But if Burrow is back in Cincinnati, I expect Chase to have some good numbers. Let's go on to running back James Cook of Buffalo. I mentioned him. Yeah, I mean, he had over 309 carries, 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns. That Bills offense was good as advertised. And I don't really see a change coming up this season as well. Joe Brady's back. He's not offensive coordinator anymore. He's head coach. But a lot of it had to do with the way Joe Brady manipulated that offense. So, I'll be very intrigued to see how Buffalo does. Of course, Josh Allen has the surgery in the offseason, so he should be back healthy. I think James Cook will be as well. Let's go with number 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver in Detroit. Now, Detroit regressed, but I think they're back as contenders in the NFC next season. So Amon-Ra should be on your radar. As we move on here, Philadelphia Eagles running back Saquon Barkley. Now, there's some good news for Saquon. He's going to have a new offensive coordinator. But the jury is still out on Sean Minion. Bad news is there's red flags that the hire that Philly took on represents. I think the biggest one is going to be, will it be status quo for the Eagles? Because if the offense struggles, do they rely on Saquon more, or does it affect his performance like it did this past season? I have him a lot lower than I did last year. He is at number 10. Number 11, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver in Dallas. Now, he had a 1,000-yard season, 3 touchdowns. Definitely not the numbers we were expecting from him. Fantasy stock down because of George Pickens. I'm still going to keep him at 11. We'll see what happens. And finally, rounding it out, Ashton Genty of Las Vegas. Mentioned they have a new coach there. Clint Kubiak comes over after the Super Bowl to be the head coach for Las Vegas. The Raiders made a splash in hiring him. I think they're going to make a splash here in getting Mendoza, which would be good. But I think the rookie quarterback has a lot to rely on Genty. Genty's going to get a lot of the reps in that Raiders offense, I believe, that will take the pressure off of Mendoza so he makes less mistakes. I think the Raiders ride Genty. That's why I have him at 12.
All right. Interesting. I like that. I like it. Puka Nacua, the first wide receiver. I got Puka Nacua. That's a new game in fantasy. New name in fantasy.
You
All
got
right.
Puka Nacua.
Puka Nacua. All right. I'm going to follow up. I got to follow up the Hall of Famer, but listen, I think I can. All right. Number one overall, I'll go Bijan Robinson. Yeah, I'm going to go old school running back. Thing about Bijan, he finished 2025, 19 and a half fantasy points per game. The last 3 weeks of the season, the fantasy season, he averaged 29.7 fantasy points. He was money. And as you mentioned, Tyler Algier took away red zone touches. He was a vulture, a touchdown vulture from Bijan. If that touchdown leakage disappears, he's going to be big number one. RB1, definitely. I'm going to go Puka Nacua number 2. And, of course, listen, he had some great numbers. And that's part of the problem because, again, you did it with Matt Stafford, and I think I'll be curious, but I think number 2 right now, he is wide receiver number 1, 19.4 fantasy points a game. Of course, Devontae Adams out with an injury. He was getting 26.1 points per game. I think he's going to be fine. Same quarterback, same coach. He'll be great. Number 2 pick. Number 3, Jamar Chase. Down year for him, wide receiver 3 at 15.7 points. Again, part of the problem, Jake Browning was the quarterback for a while there. After, of course, the injury happened to Joe Burrow. He was 17.2 fantasy points per game, weeks 5 through 18. I think that's good. He's going to be on a high-volume passing offense next year. Number 3 pick. Number 4, Jahmyr Gibbs. Listen, Detroit had a very disappointing year this year, but Jahmyr Gibbs still RB4 with 19.3 fantasy points, top 3 in opportunities, 18 touchdowns. Listen, David Montgomery took away some red zone touches. That's there. We'll see how the offense changes in Detroit as they made a switch in the offseason. But Jahmyr Gibbs at number 4. Number 5, Devon Achane. Again, RB5, 18.1 points per game. Again, the question's going to be quarterback. How will new coach affect him? It'll be interesting to see how it happens this year. But Achane was great. He's at number 5. I got good old CMC at number 6. He was RB1 in 2025, but down the stretch, 23.8 fantasy points per game. I mean, listen, he carried the 49ers on his back. George Kittle probably not going to be playing for most of 2026. I think, listen, I'm going to say, I'm not going to say he's injury riddled. I know we kind of poo-pooed him this year. McCaffrey's a real deal. Number 6 overall on our way too early top 12. I'm on Ross St. Brown at number 7. Again, that Detroit offense, I mean, took a step back this year. And I think, but he's still wide receiver 4, 15.6 fantasy points per game. The Lions improving their offensive coordinator, big key. It's going to be interesting to see how that offense goes. Jackson Smith Njigba. He's playing in the Super Bowl. That's right. 17.7 fantasy points per game. He led the NFL in receiving yardage. Now, the Seahawks could regress a little bit because Clint Kubiak, of course, leaving, and he will go to Las Vegas. But I still say JSN is for real. I think he's there at number 8. Number 9 is going to surprise you. Malik Neighbors of the New York Football Giants. He was on pace for wide receiver 1 production. Then he tore his ACL. Remember, in 2024, he had 14.6 fantasy points per game with awful quarterback play. If he is healthy and paired with Jackson Dart, boy, he could have a year. Upside on the first round. Again, if he gets placed on the PUP list, he'll drop out of round 1. But Neighbors, if he's back and if he's healthy, slot him in at 9. Jonathan Taylor, RB2 with 21.3 points. I mean, again, we talk about old school. He's as old school as they come. He was RB1 in fantasy, 23.3 points per game. However, when Daniel Jones went down, that offense was terrible. Jones returns healthy next year. He'll be RB1, could be overall. And I think Jonathan Taylor is for real, number 10. CeeDee Lamb at number 11. CeeDee had a serious ankle injury. George Pickens broke out, but Lamb's still a dominant player when healthy. He remains the number 1 pick. He was wide receiver number 10 this year on the boards, averaging just over 14 points a game. Justin Jefferson at number 12. Boy, Justin Jefferson killed me in fantasy. Me in fantasy. Brutal. He was terrible. And the problem was he was still getting volume even when he was average. Weeks 10 through 17, he averaged 5.5 fantasy points per game. I mean, that was a killer. That was a killer down the stretch, especially with people who drafted him early. He is somebody who I think with a stable quarterback could do well. Let's see what happens with the Vikings with Kevin O'Connor. Let's see. Let's see what works. Listen, I do like your pick of James Cook. I liked him last year. Let's not forget Drake London could be on the outskirts looking in. Omarion Hampton, who had that injury and he kind of fell off the radar at the end. And let's not forget the guy who was the tight end and who blossomed when the supposed franchise quarterback went out, Kyler Murray, Trey McBride for Arizona. Let's see what happens with him next year. He was a surprise this year, and people who had him on the roster were definitely surprised. He was tight end 1, and again, part of that was because of the injury to Brock Bowers. All right, on the Fantasy Sultans, we are going to give you our Super Bowl picks. It is Seahawks. It is the Patriots. How about I go first this time?
All right.
And we've talked about this, and if you listen to our radio show, I have said the entire postseason, this is about Sam Darnold. And are we going to see the good Sam Darnold or the bad Sam Darnold? I think this game is the same thing. Sam Darnold is going to be the key. I think Sam Darnold, this was the game that I kind of targeted him as having that letdown when bad Sam comes out. And I still think it's possible. But I'm not totally sold on the New England Patriots. Yeah, it's a great story, but I am not sold on the Patriots. I'm not sold on Drake May. I think Seattle's defense is going to bottle up the New England offense. So, again, in this game, I think Seattle's a 4.5-point favorite. That line has stayed pretty steady. It dropped a little bit right out of the gate, but it's held pretty steady. I think Seattle wins this game 37-20. I think the Seahawks, it's not going to be as big of a defensive game as you might think. But then again, I also think that some garbage time TDs could be coming for New England because I think Seattle jumps out early and big. I think Seattle wins the Super Bowl. Mike?
Well, Seattle's defense, I think, is going to determine who wins the Super Bowl, really. I mean, they came into this game as the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, and what really is they are in a good position to finally, put themselves. We saw it happen when they were in the Super Bowl, 12 years ago, give or take. They had that great defense, and it could very much happen again. And I agree with you. I just don't think New England is quite there. I mean, they got there, but they also got there because they had weather on their side. They had they played against not so great quarterbacks. I mean, let's face it, Bo Nix, if Bo Nix was there, might have had a different situation. Um, CJ Stroud in Houston, you know. So I think that they got a couple of breaks along the way. They have a great defense. Mike Vrabel, like I said, did a bang up job with the Patriots this season, turning that whole team around. But like I said, I think it's going to be the defense that comes up big and brings that stop for the game. And I'm going to go with Seattle winning this one 30-23. I think they also win by a touchdown and get the job done. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be on the shoulders of Sam Darnold. I don't know if you're going to see an MVP from him. I think you're going to see the MVP from somebody on defense. Just saying.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. All right, so that's going to wrap up 2025. Put a bow and a ribbon on it for the Fantasy Sultans. Again, don't forget, we have our Sunday with the Sultans radio show, which will continue. We'll have it for this week for the Super Bowl, and then we'll have the wrap-up show the following week. We have an hour. They're going to give us an hour on the radio. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. What are we going to do with an hour? Well, you've stuck with us for this long. It's almost an hour on the podcast. There you go. But we will be back with the Fantasy Sultans podcast. We'll have a podcast for you before the NFL draft. We will, of course, handicap the draft. We'll talk a little bit about what's been going on in terms of NFL headlines, free agency, that kind of thing, and the fantasy implications. And, of course, we will return with 2026. The Fantasy Sultans will be back podcasting. We'll be back in August for that too, so you can look forward to that on this fine outlet that you get it, either Spotify or YouTube. Mike, it has always been a pleasure to work with a Hall of Famer.
You too, my friend.
And we had a great year this year. Oh yeah, the Madness is coming soon too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes, indeed, the Madness. we hopefully it was a good season for you. Congratulations to those who win, those who beat us. Pox on you, but next year we're going to come back. We'll have the revenge tour coming up, the Fantasy Sultans. But listen, we thank you for joining us. We thank you for listening to us. Thank you for supporting the Fantasy Sultans. You know, we're the ones who are helping you. We're trying to give you the tips, the ideas, the players. We're trying to help you navigate the rough waters that is fantasy football. And I don't think you're going to need therapy like Stephanie has offered because, hey, we're going to help you win. We're givers. We do it all the time. He is Mike Scheck. I am Tripp Rogers. Together, we are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.